I think I defy our councillor friend from Hackney to disagree with one word of that speech, and it was just a shame that he or her wasn't here to hear it. Look, thank you to all the speakers for their fantastic contributions. I want to talk mostly in my kind of final concluding comments to this session about us. But before I do that, I don't think we can not address the events of recent weeks. Another election that wasn't quite. Let me be absolutely honest about the predicament that Compass were in. Should we jump to a new leader in the hope that they would avert a wipeout? Or should we stick with the devil we know? Harriet, that's just a figurative term. I don't really mean that, obviously. To us, the Management Committee, the committee that you elect every year in a real election where there are more candidates than places, this felt like an impossible choice. 2 years ago, in the absence of any kind of alternative, we gave Gordon Brown our good wishes when he was Crown Leader. And to be honest, it hasn't turned out so well. It's not really our style of leadership. It's not exactly that open or that collegiate. It doesn't understand that real power comes from pluralism, from competing centres of power, that through debate and through discussion like we're having today, we get stronger, that through difference we learn. And style matters, but it doesn't matter as much as substance. Look, let's be absolutely clear. It's not the personality of the Prime Minister that's led to the rise of the BNP. It's not the personality of the Prime Minister that's led to growing inequality. It's the substance. It's the wrong politics. We're heading in the wrong direction. Now, of course, it might be nice if the captain of the ship smiles at the right moment. But what really matters is whether they steer the ship away from the rocks. And it could have been the case that a different leader could have saved us a handful of seats. We don't know. We didn't really know what they wanted to lead the party for. And it's not our job to decode, interpret, second-guess what these people stand for. It's for them to tell us what they stand for. If they want to lead, they should show us leadership. And of course, I'm a member of the Labour Party. I know lots of people in this room aren't. It's a good thing. And I want more Labour MPs. But it's not a question of how many Labour MPs we've got. We've had huge majorities and we've done the wrong thing. We've spoken for the wrong people. We've led our country in the wrong direction for too long. Yes, we want lots of Labour MPs, but we want Labour MPs with the right hearts, who believe in what we believe and stand for what we believe. That's much more important than just the numbers game. And so before we jumped to anyone else, we wanted to know what they stood for. It was never about a change of leader. It was always about a change of direction because, let's face it, we're in a mess. Now look, no one likes a smart arse. No one likes people who say, I told you so. But our grown-up and mature message to the Labour Party is this: we told you so. We told you about the lost millions of voters since 2001. We told you about the hollowing out of the party. We told you about the rise of the BNP and the need for a massive public house-building programme. We were told to mind our own business and not to meddle with New Labour's brilliant election-winning formula. Well, where has that got us? 15% in a national election, the lowest election result this party has ever had. That's where it's got us. We've reached the end of the road for New Labour. We don't think there's very much left in the tank. And the crucial point about that is to understand now why it went wrong. Why it wasn't 12 wasted years. We did good things, but it is a massive wasted opportunity that we can't allow to happen again. And I think the answer to the problem is actually very, very simple. The problem is this: we stopped being a party of social democracy. Yes, we did some good, but the point of social democracy can only be to regulate markets in the interests of people and not for profit. And we stopped being a party of social democracy, so we started going in the wrong direction. Now, that doesn't make us anti-business. It does make us recognise that business can only succeed in the rich soil of society. Unless you grow that society, you're not going to have successful business. Unless you've got strong regulation of capitalism, it always destroys itself. We always have to come back and save it from ourselves. So we are not anti-business, but we are pro-society. We know that if we want a more equal and sustainable society, then we have to regulate the system that controls where markets can go and where they can't, and their rules of operation. It's just as simple as that. If we don't, we end up with terrible consequences. The deregulation of the city that led to the credit crunch, which led to the recession, and now leads to a public spending crisis because we haven't got the tax incomes and we've got to spend more on benefits. The crisis created by free markets and the bankers becomes a crisis for poor people who rely on public services. We got it wrong and we have to start getting it right. Now, when you stop believing that people come first, it isn't all of them by any stretch, Harriet, I know that. It's just a few, but even a few MPs that believe that changing their house is more important than changing the world is a pretty disastrous place to be. So we don't just need the regulation to put markets in their place. We need a culture change too. The worship of money and wealth deforms our culture and our lives. We have to hope for something better. Galbraith said that there are many visions of the good society. The treadmill is not one of them. Because we've lost our way, the stark reality is this, that in a year's time, just a year's time, when we meet again, we could be faced with a Conservative government, and we will be faced with a Conservative government unless and until we change and get it right. We can't keep running up the down escalator of believing that capitalism will deliver equality and sustainability. It won't. We can put it to our purpose, but we have to have that purpose. Now, we can only rebuild and renew as a party and as a movement as social democrats, not as market democrats. And as John and others have said, the means by which we build a new social democracy, a new socialism. Firstly, it is about transforming the Labour Party. We need a vehicle that can take control of the state, not because we think we know what to do with it, because we know that it has to give power away. And the Labour Party has been transformed. It was transformed 15, 20 years ago by New Labour. It can be transformed again for social and democratic purposes, and it is our job to transform it. But a transformed Labour Party is not enough. We need far more than that. We can be in office, but be out of power. Power lies with Murdoch and Dacre. Power lies with the CBI and the global corporations. If we want to stop their excesses, it's not enough just to get a Labour government elected. We need to build much stronger alliances and networks, a real, deep, enduring and popular progressive consensus. Now, Tony Blair, he wanted, remember, because I was there as a researcher and a footnote in the history of the origins of New Labour. I remember very clearly that he wanted to get rid of the commitment to build a parliament in Scotland, in Edinburgh. He thought it was a vote loser and he was worried about it. The reason he couldn't get rid of that commitment before '97 was because there was a powerful civil society movement called the Scottish Constitutional Convention, made up of faith groups, trade unions, other parties, civil society organisations, which stopped him. It was impossible. He couldn't move. Here in London, we have a Tory mayor who's introducing a living wage, not a minimum wage, a living wage. It's not because he believes in it. It's because an organisation called London Citizens organised such a powerful lobby of forces that he had no choice but to introduce a living wage. And in that, we find inspiration.